So guys, I want to tell you, we've been having such incredible spaces on Twitter, just getting to hear quite a number of, men and women of great minds really sharing important issues, especially after the ZEP declaration and also the upcoming elections of Zimbabwe as well as South Africa. South Africa has got elections this coming 2024. So guys, it's going to be such an interesting journey that we are facing in this coming, season of our life. But wait, I want to remind you the book that I'm reading, and I just want to share that with you. It's incredible books. I buy books quite a lot. I used to buy books quite a lot, and some of them I haven't read, but I have a lot. So I am reading this book written by Dr. Moss Monroe. May his soul rest in peace. It's called The Purpose and Power of Authority. Okay, so here we go. The Purpose and Power of Authority. You can literally see that. All right, so I wanted you guys to see how important it is to read, and I want to encourage you guys to buy books and read, but most importantly, check books that has to do with purpose. Yeah, because that's where your life, really your main life lies. All right, so while I'm there, I want to talk about a quote that was really dropped by Dr. Brian Tamuka Kagoro. And you also going to hear him inside this video that I'm doing today, because he spoke so eloquently and strongly on one of the spaces that we had on Twitter. But I wanna just read the quote. He says, "Sanctions do not create thieves, but thieves create sanctions." Brian Tamuka Kagoro. While we are on the issue of sanctions, because this is so important, guys, before I even proceed to talk much about that, I wanted to actually read a quick tweet that was sent out by Tim Pachedu on social media. Really, it had more to do with the monies that are being dished out to most of our brothers and sisters, really in different sectors of our government in Zimbabwe. So send out this tweet. They said Emerson Mnangagwa and ZANU-PF have taken vote buying to police headquarters. That's what they said. All police bosses from superintendent rank and above have signed housing grants from the government to the tune of $40,000, and the number is believed to be 500, which brings the total to 20 million. Money is going to be dished out to the police headquarters that's worth over 20 million. Oh, by the way, don't forget, we also have the other funds that were dished out to quite a number of people, but I'm going to get to that tweet shortly. Then we also have judges allegedly offered almost 400,000 to, each, from, again, the government, which is also worth about 20 million US. So this was reported by Hopo Chingono. And there's also a tweet that was sent out more in detail, just trying to clarify the amount of monies that are being dished out. So this was sent out by Neva Masurasi. He also says Zim, their self-enrichment scheme. So he mentioned about ministers were given about 500K US each. And we have deputy ministers who also offered 350 million K each. I mean, we know that was approved, also even members of parliament. And also the CIO's directors were also given about 350K each, and the Reserve Bank governor and deputy so given infinity dollars as per the allegations. And then the judges, I mentioned that the members of parliament, the 40,000K, which went also viral as well. Then civil servants, dollars, they're going to be given about 250 per month. Pensioners, 80 per month. General citizens, $1 survival per day. So he also put a school there. He put the president and the jet. So you can take a look right there. You can see the president in this jet, a new jet. A lot is happening. But my main focus really is just to talk about the sanctions that Rutendo Matinyere and his anti-sanctions campaign, they did such an incredible video, which I want you guys to take a listen before I move to the next story. Please watch the video.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, the economic meltdown that we're seeing right now is because of the economic sanctions, but not only because of the economic sanctions, but the activities that are undertaken to ensure that sanctions work. So I think you've seen recently there was a gold mafia documentary that was produced because they're seeing that we're using our gold to bust the sanctions, and they don't want that gold to be used to bust sanctions. Recently, you saw in South Africa, there was an attempt to deport our ZEP workers, who are the biggest remitters of foreign currency into the country, because remittances have become our biggest foreign currency earner, because human talent is our biggest export. We had to fight that as well, because we believe that the United States is behind all this sabotage, trying to sabotage our activities to bust these sanctions. And so with the gold mafia coming out, a lot of the gold buyers were licensed, a lot of the gold sellers were licensed, have not been undertaking the activities that they've been taking that gave us the record-breaking levels last year. So it is definitely sanctions and the activities associated with trying to maintain those sanctions that works. Now you asked, what do we have to do to make these sanctions go away? I think Baza has already started the legal action that they've started in Zimbabwe. We started legal action in South Africa. And as you can see, there's a collaboration that is happening now. We have gone after the implementers of the sanctions in the biggest trading country with Zimbabwe, South Africa. Their banks have been instituting these illegal sanctions, as she said, and by so doing, they are actually breaking international law. They have also been implementing these sanctions without trial. They don't try the people who they block from their banking system. They don't try the institutions that they cut corresponding banking relationships with. So that in its own way is over-compliance, which the special rapporteur said is illegal. And every nation is enjoined to actually create laws to stop over-compliance.
But why I am still thinking that we can do more is when I look at corruption, which is really have added so much pain into our people. Because corruption is there, whether we like it or not. But I did not want to take these words out of Dr. Brian Kagoro's mouth. I want him to really talk to your spirit, because when he spoke on Twitter Space, I was like, I need people to be educated. So we really understand how to work on this sanction issue. And besides working on the sanction issue, also how to move from here. Because at the end of the day, guys, we need a solution in Zimbabwe than anything else. We all need to come together and say, guys, brothers and sisters, we need solutions. You know, our people are hanging on a thread. They will just have to be waiting for what the South African government has to say about their future. You know, they were given an extension of 6 months for the ZEP, permits, but we cannot hang on a thread. We need a permanent solution to the problem. And how do we do that? By really working together and fix our country. So I want you guys to take a listen to this, space and what Dr. Brian had to say. Watch this.
And we saw this. That's why I said we've had it since the inception of the Rhodesian state. The inability to read through how we balance political interests with objective, broader national interests, including economic and social.
Well, Brian, let me come in here. I want to pose a question to you. There are some South Africans who think that the economic problems in Zimbabwe are as a result of sanctions that were imposed on the government there, but otherwise the policies, some of them at least, are sound enough and they should work in the long term. The expropriation of land being one example. There are people who believe that to some extent, Zimbabwe has got something to teach South Africa when it comes to managing its economy, even though at this time we are facing our own challenges with the high unemployment rate, high poverty levels, high inequality, and of course the social fabric of our society, beginning to come apart now as a result of these economic pressures. What is your comment about that? About those who
let's
Zimbabwe?
Yeah, Tim, let's start off with a simple matter. I'm one of those Zimbabweans who've consistently said Western sanctions, whether they are targeted, whether they actually are the cause of the economic challenge or not, must be removed. The idea that one sovereign can, through its domestic legislative authority, constrain the international relations of another sovereign is unacceptable to me as Brian. I know in this I differ with a lot of my colleagues, and my position on this has been consistent. And a lack of respect for basic history. When labor movements went into strike mode in 1989, there were no sanctions. When students and labor went into strike action from 1989 to 1995, there were no sanctions. The economy was in structural crisis. Part of that structural crisis is hereditary, and part of it was the wholesale acceptance by Mugabe of the World Bank, IMF economic structural adjustment programs. That created massive redundancies in the economy. And that created, if you like, industrial levels of informalization. This informalization and redundancies affected Black workers who only had been brought into formal employment and public sector employment at the point of independence. So for the majority Black population, the former white-owned businesses employed them at the most menial and low levels. The state, which was giving them opportunities, began to get rid of them as a result of structural adjustment programs. In 1997, we made the decision to go into the DRC. You and I can debate whether that decision to go into the DRC was a correct one. Simba Makwan, in his budget speech as Minister of Finance in 2000, and this you can find on the internet, indicated that Zimbabwe was spending from its own budget $1 million US per day. That's a conservative estimate. During that same period in 1997, we gave war veterans or veterans of the war that we had neglected for many years 2.5 billion extra budget allocation that we had not budgeted for. It was a budgetary appropriation. The economy went into tailspin, not because of sanctions. ZIDERA had not yet come into being. So Black Thursday actually happened, which is where the Zimbabwean currency lost more than 45% of its value in less than 6 hours. Happened before ZIDERA. ZIDERA comes into being in 2000, the Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Something Act, the so-called sanctions bill. If you want to critique part of the genesis of the problem, you have to look at those factors so that you are not pretending every problem began with sanctions. Sanctions worsened what was already dramatically a problem. We were having fuel challenges at the time. We had food shortages at the time. We had actually resorted to the conflict that had arisen between the industrial class and the state. And then let me go back to the question of indigenization. There used to be an indigenization policy. When Mnangagwa came into power, whether or not you agreed with that indigenization policy, it was reversed. There used to be the land. We're compensating white commercial farmers. Between you and I, Tim, a lot of those farmers had borrowed heavily from the local financial services sector. When the farms were expropriated, there was no serious cataloging or documentation of how much each farmer owed. The compensation, the taking of the farms essentially meant that the farmers were able to exit their, if you like, their legal obligations or of the loans that they owed to local banks, because the act of state was enough for them to say they were unable to meet their obligations, not because they were irresponsible, but because an intervening factor, which is the state policy, had made them unable to. So whether or not that money that was borrowed was effectively and wholly used on the farms or banked somewhere, no one knows. There was no compensation of black farm workers. Let me just finish. There were 500,000 black farm workers, according to the GAPU's General Plantation Workers Union, on the farms. Nobody has talked about compensating them. These people, most of them were evicted from the farms as the veterans took over the farms. They went onto the streets to suggest that 500,000 people plus their family, that's a population of almost 1.6 million people, just disappeared. We must produce poverty, intentionally or unintentionally, through several actions that could have been better thought through, and we are doing worse now. When Mugabe left with $6 billion of debt, it's barely 6 years after Mugabe's departure, we're sitting in double digits of debt. How do we explain? And most of the borrowings are not building anything of significance. They are not creating jobs. They are not creating value. Hopewell has already given us a sense of how the social services sector have not been replenished. Nothing as new has been built. So we are borrowing in order to finance conspicuous consumption and recurrent expenditure. This is part of the problem. And kleptocracy and corruption. Look, as a person who is opposed to sanctions, I cannot sit and allow people who are willingly destroying the economy and the of Zimbabweans, born and unborn, putting all of us in debt, to excuse their grand theft and investments in the Middle East, in Europe and elsewhere as purely the product of sanctions. Sanctions do not create thieves. Thieves create sanctions.
So, guys, did I ever tell you that I actually got hold of Dr. Brian Kagoro on a summit that he had in Rwanda? I actually didn't know him much, and I was shocked when I discovered that he was actually Zimbabwean. I was like, what? We have such men and women of great minds, y'all, that we can fix this country just like that. And there was a time I also saw that Strive Masio was in Botswana. on a summit there. And I'm like, why are they not coming to Zimbabwe? Why? Why are my brothers investing more in the outskirts there and they're not even coming to be of a blessing to us as a community? It hurts me the most, guys. I don't know what you guys think, but it really hurts me the most. Because I want our people to come and let's work together to make this country a great country again. The breadbasket of Africa. You know what I mean? We don't want our people to hang on a thread. We really want to make sure that at least we avoid migration, and people can just maybe restore our dignity once again. We are tired of people speaking negatively about Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a blessed country. It has blessed people. It has amazing people. It has a great people and our great children, great grandchildren. A generation of greatness is who we are. And we're not accepting anything lesser than that. So we're going to keep on saying we'll do whatever it takes to have the most beautiful country for all. Zimbabwe is beautiful. But we need to work and try to fix everything that needs attention right now. But let's bring men and women of great minds. Let's work together to roll our sleeves because it is our home, right? It is my home. It is your home. It is our home. It is a home of everyone who visits in our space and everyone who may be doing whatever they're doing from every country. We're all a family to us. We love you all. And guys, I just saw a video that I thought I can share with you because it is interesting and triggering. Actually, the Themba Mliso had a conversation with Trevor, and he pointed something that I thought I would just want to share with you. He spoke about Honorable Wajgajen. I remember Honorable, but one thing that hits me the most was that the money that he looted was supposed to actually feed the poor. Take a listen.
You saw in terms of corruption, you spoke about the portfolio committees. Honorable Justice Wajgajen had this Kotko issue, and in terms of the code of conduct, he was not supposed to chair. He still continued chairing. He lost in the primary elections. And this would have been an opportunity for ZANU PF to say, thank God, one
Bye-bye.
But they still gave him another chance. The political bureau sat down. I mean, don't you feel for the people?
I do, but why,
And then he
Themba?
came back.
Why is that being done, Themba?
That is the reason why they say it's a cartel. It's a cartel of the politicians. And he was very clear that if at all this continues, I'll expose certain people who I was working with. 5 million went missing. And you're telling me that somebody has no case. And this was supposed to be the money to pay the cotton farmers who are poor. You go and give them hampers. And you still want to legitimize that person to still be a legislator. It talks that the whole narrative of zero tolerance on corruption is not true.
But it goes up. That's what it means.
Listen,
It goes right up to the top.
this is what the president must understand, that all these things end up on his desk. All these issues end up on his desk. No amount of propaganda will exonerate him.
Because if it mattered to the president would have said, Wajgajen, whatever his name is, the electorate is throwing you out, you're out. Or even before then, measures should have done to make sure that this man does not stand. But that is not happening. That says to the public, Themba, push back as much as that this man is protection. Or he knows that his cartel goes up right to the top.
It goes without question. So how do you instill confidence in the people? How do you instill confidence in the people?
I don't know what you guys think, but I'm very hurt, right? I'm very hurt if what he's alleging is correct. If it's true that the man was looted and this man was supposed to feed for the poor. Yo, guys. Because I remember the time that he went back and he was giving people plastic dishes and cups. Do you remember that? Take a look at that video. Take a look. Right, that one. When he was giving people plastic cups and buckets. Oh, God. That is shocking, Yeah. And this video it hurts me the most. It really hurts me the most. When I started thinking about it, I was like, no, man, guys, we can do better. Right? We can do better. These are people. Yeah, we can do better. All right, guys, tell me what you think in the comment section below. Until next time, I love you so much, guys. Please share some love. Until we meet again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Love you all. God bless. Bye for now.